Yo, what's good, everybody? It's your boy Taco. Today we are back with another video, and free agency is mostly done. Most of the signings have happened, and with that comes my free agent grades. I've got 75 guys here, so I'm going to have to go quick, but yeah, I'm just grading these. I'm grading these based off of how good the contract value is. How much value are you getting for the player? Also the fit, just how good the signing is. And so, yeah, I'm excited. Let's get right into these predictions. First up is Daniel Jones. He got a 2-year, $88 million deal with the Colts. I'm giving this a B-. Daniel Jones was very successful. The Colts offense looked very good with Daniel Jones in there. It looked like he could run Shane Steichen's offense really well. Do I think a quarterback could do that for less than $44 million? Yes. But should you take the risk with that? No. I like the signing enough. I'm giving it a B-. Kyler Murray on a 1-year minimum deal with the Minnesota Vikings. This is getting an A-. You are getting a solid quarterback, a really solid quarterback that could possibly do some things and really can elevate this team for a minimum contract. That's great. Only thing I don't understand is the Cardinals just cut him, and they kind of run an offense from the Sean McVay tree. Is he really going to fit in Minnesota? I'm not sure, but I like the idea. I like the signing, giving it an A-. Malik Willis, 3 years, $67 million, going to the Dolphins. I'm giving this a B+. I thought he was going to get $30 million plus a year. That's what it seemed like. Malik Willis has looked very good in Green Bay the last 2 years. I like the fit in Miami. I like the idea of Miami trying to find a young, exciting quarterback. I think this could really work for the price. I don't think it's too crazy. I'm giving it a B+. I think it's pretty solid. Tua going to the Falcons, also on a 1-year minimum deal. This is getting a B. He can compete with Penix. I don't really like that you're fringing on Michael Penix's development possibly for a year, but he works well with them, both being left-handed. And I do think Tua still has something in the bank that is pretty good for being a 1-year minimum contract. I'm just not exactly sure with the team on this one. Moving on to the running backs, I'm giving Kenneth Walker a C+. 3 years, $43 million to the Chiefs is a lot of money for a guy that, really just produced in the playoffs. We haven't seen him in a lead role yet, but at the same time, the way that we have seen him in the playoffs, that was amazing. If we get that again, this would be a great signing. I'm just not sure about that. We've never seen him in a workhorse role, and this is a lot of money. Travis Etienne to the Saints, 4 years, $52 million. This gets a C. I'm not the hugest fan of giving a running back that much money. Travis Etienne has been solid, but he hasn't been this top-tier back. And also, I think the Saints, Jeremiah Love was most likely going to fall to you unless he goes to, the Titans at 4 or something. But I just don't see why the Saints should pay a running back this much. Rachaad White going to the Commanders, 1 year, $4 million. This gets an A. This is a very solid running back going for only $4 million. Very solid player. He works well in Tampa Bay. He was a lead back in Tampa Bay for a year. He can be that in Washington for a pretty cheap price. I think that this is a great deal. Rico Dowdle going to Pittsburgh, 2 years, $12.5 million. This gets a B. Only thing I don't really like is that Caleb Johnson is there, and what are you going to do with him? That was your power runner. Now you get this power runner. But Rico Dowdle is very effective, very efficient. I think he's very good for $6 million. I think this is a solid signing. J.K. Dobbins, 2 years, $16 million. This gets a C. I'm okay with it, but J.K. Dobbins gets hurt a lot. $8 million a year is quite a bit for a running back, especially when you see what some of these other running backs have gotten. I think that it's a solid deal. It can work, but I don't like investing into J.K. Dobbins as my RB1, really. Isaiah Pacheco going to the Lions, 1 year, just $2 million. This gets an A. By far, this is a very good signing, being the ground apparent to Gibbs, the knuckles, the guy, ground pound, really, but I think he's a very solid running back. I think he could fit very well into the team, obviously, and only $2 million. It's a great signing. Alec Pierce, back to the Colts, 4 years, $114 million. This gets a C+. Alec Pierce, solid player. 28.5 million is a lot of money. A little bit too much money for Alec Pierce, but Alec Pierce is a solid player. Again, you can't overpay for great production. This isn't great production, but this is one of the best deep threat receivers in the league. Fits very well with the Colts. They need a guy like this. That's why he got this contract, but it's a C+ from me. Mike Evans going to the Niners, 3 years, 42 million. This gets an A-. I've seen some people say it was 60, some people say it was 42. One, it's crazy that he left the Bucs. But this is a very solid fit with San Fran, a very solid receiver. I know he's old, but he still is extremely productive, and he's going into a Shanahan offense that he fits in. Only 14 mil a year. This is a pretty solid signing. Romeo Doubs going to the Patriots, 4 years, 68 million. This gets a B-. One, the Patriots are just adding another wide receiver too, which I don't really understand. They don't really have that receiver one with them releasing Diggs, and they're not getting A.J. Brown. But Romeo Doubs, very solid player. He can definitely be productive with the Patriots, with the Drake May, Josh McDaniels offense. I think this is a solid pickup. Wan'Dale Robinson going to the Titans, 4 years, 70 million. This gets a C+. He reunites with Brian Daboll, which isn't a huge thing. I mean, it's not like Brian Daboll. It's not like he was unbelievable with Brian Daboll. He just got the ball a ton. But fits well with the Titans. They need a guy. They need a slot guy. Fits with Cam Ward. I think it's a solid signing, but it is a lot of money and a big commitment into a slot guy. Rashid Shaheed heading back to the Seahawks, 3 years, 51 million. This gets a B+. I think he was a huge part, especially in the return game, to helping Seattle go and do what they did last year. It was huge. The way when he came in there, it shifted the offense. They had the vertical talent. I think it's a very nice fit in Seattle. It works. Keep it like that, and that's why it gets a B+. Jalen Nailor, 3 years, 35 million. This gets a C-. Jalen Nailor is an okay player. He's not worth 3 years, 35 million. I get it. The Raiders need guys, but I think they need a guy a little bit better than this as their free agent receiver signing. But it's all right. It's a C-. It's not great. Darnell Mooney, 1 year, 10 million to the Giants. This gets an A-. Darnell Mooney was a very solid receiver in 24. He was okay in 25. I think he goes to a team. He can be the receiver too. He can be a solid player. I think he'd fit well with Jackson Dart. I really like the fit and the payment. I mean, 10 million isn't a ton. I like this. It's an A-. Then the tight ends, Isaiah Likely, 3 years, 40 million to the Giants. This gets a B-. Isaiah Likely hasn't really been a tight end one yet. You can tell he's a very solid pass catcher, especially he can fit well with Jackson Dart and Matt Nagy and, reuniting with John Harbaugh. I think it is a solid signing, but it's a little bit of money for a guy that's never been a tight end one. Travis Kelce returning to the Chiefs, 1 year, 12 million. This gets a B. Hey, he's going back to the Chiefs. What did we expect? But he's a solid player. He still puts up solid numbers. Chiefs kind of claiming that they are going back at it. I'm not sure about that, but Travis Kelce, solid player, gets a B. Cade Otton, 3 years, 30 million, back to the Bucs. This gets a B+. I think he's a really solid tight end, solid blocker, does enough in that receiving game. I want to see him in the Zach Robinson offense, the way that he was able to use Kyle Pitts, but I think this is a solid pickup. I like it enough. It's a B+. Chig Okonkwo, the same contract, 3 years, 30 million to the Washington Commanders. This gets a B. He's a solid tight end. He really has showed a lot of flashes recently. I hope that he's able to capitalize with it in Washington. I think if they had Cliff Kingsbury, it would be a very cool signing and a cool fit. I'm not really sure about it right now, so it gets a B. Rasheed Walker, believe the only one of the video, 1 year's 10 million to the Panthers is an A+. The Panthers need an offensive tackle, and Rasheed Walker fills that hole really well. Really solid offensive tackle. We thought he was going to get overpaid. We thought he was going to get 20 million plus a year. He just takes a 10 million prove-it deal. Carolina Panthers, they're doing something really solid here. This is a great move. This is one of actually two A pluses. Braden Smith going to Houston, 2 years, $20 million. This gets a B. I'm happy with Houston finally addressing their offensive line after doing what they did last year and then trading Titus Howard and then trading Juice Scruggs, who isn't that great. But Braden Smith is a solid player. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He can be a very solid protector for CJ Stroud and the Texans. Braxton Jones re-signing with the Bears, 1 year, $5 million. This gets an A. Braxton Jones was very solid for the Bears. Obviously a piece of that very good offensive line. He re-signs for pretty cheap. I think this is a great signing for the Bears, retaining what of that offensive line they can. Jermaine Illuminor re-signing with the Giants, 3 years, $39 million. This gets a B+. Keeping a solid protector for Jackson Dart, something you obviously need to do. Jermaine Illuminor played pretty solid football. That's why he is up here. Tyler Linderbaum, 3 years, $81 million to the Raiders. This gets a B. You need to protect for Fernando Mendoza. There might not be a better pass blocking center in the league right now than Tyler Linderbaum. Yes, it's a ton of money. You had to pay that to get a good free agent. You think a farm boy is going to go to Vegas for the same amount of money than to stay in Baltimore? No. He's going to go to Vegas for a lot of money. It's a solid deal. You need that. Centers are important. He's worked at $27 million, especially in these circumstances with Mendoza. It's a solid signing. Elijah Vera Tucker going to the Patriots, 3 years, $42 million. This gets a C+. I understand he hasn't been healthy a lot in the Patriots. They want to go to the Super Bowl. They want to play 20, 21 games. But he is a very good piece when he's in there. We can bank on the health. We can try with the health. And we can hope. And right now it gets a C+. David Edwards to the Saints, 4 years, $61 million. It gets a B-. Look, the Saints are really building an offensive line. They have a really solid offensive line. They're really building a nice team. I think they're a receiver away from having a very competent offense with Tyler Shuck. So I do like the signing, filling out the offensive line. I think $15 million is quite a bit for David Edwards, but I think it's a solid signing. Zion Johnson going to the Browns, 3 years, $49.5 million. It gets a C. It's a lot of money. It is a lot of money for Zion Johnson, who's all right, but he's not great. But you do need a solid offensive line to protect Shador or whoever the quarterback will be next year. And he is going to be a part of that. So it is a solid pickup. Elton Jenkins, kind of the same thing. Going to the Browns, 2 years, $24 million. Gets a C- because he also has a health concern on top of it. He might be a better offensive lineman than Zion Johnson. Also getting paid less money. But we're scared about the health. Scared about the age, especially with a younger Browns team. He's probably not going to stick around a while, but is a solid player. It's still C- though. Isaac Seumalo going to the Cardinals, 3 years, $31 million. This gets a B. They need a solid protector for Jacoby Brissett or whoever the quarterback they're most likely going to draft in 27 is. But this is a solid pickup. Isaac Seumalo, very solid guard. You don't get a ton of those. They picked one up. Very solid. Tyler Biadasz going to the Chargers, 3 years, $30 million. This gets a C+. The Chargers, they had a big issue at center, and I wish that they filled it a little bit more, especially because they lose Zion Johnson, they lose Mekhi Becton, who wasn't good. I feel like they should have added more meat on that offensive line, but it is a solid pickup. John Simpson going to the Ravens, 3 years, $30 million. He replaces Falalele, who is much needed to be replaced, but yeah, solid pickup to the interior offensive line of the Ravens that obviously has to rebuild, has to protect Lamar. I think John Simpson's a solid player, though. It gets a B-. Cade Mays going to the Lions, 3 years, $25 million. This gets a B+. Very solid center for the Panthers last year. You see the Lions, they're kind of breaking down on this offensive line with Ragnow, whatever's going on with him, cutting Decker. So you get a guy in Cade Mays, very solid center, can be a very solid piece with the Detroit Lions. Moving on to the defense, and Trey Hendrickson, 4 years, $112 million. I gave this a B. It's a lot of money for a guy that was not productive last year and had a big injury. But this is a solid player. He had 17 plus maybe sacks the 2 years before that. He's a very solid piece. He can be a very solid edge one for a team. I do think it's a nice contract, especially based on the compensation of some of these other edge rushers. I think it's a solid deal to be. Jalen Phillips, 4 years, $120 million to the Panthers. This gets a C minus. 5 sacks last year. Hurt the 2 years before that. I don't see where $30 million comes from. Yeah, he's good in the run. Yeah, he's cool. He's tall. Maybe it felt more productive than 5 sacks last year. $30 million? That's a lot. The Panthers need an edge rusher, though. They need to spend money, and you can't overpay for great talent, and that is pretty good talent, but it's a C minus. Odafe Owe to the Commanders, 4 years, $100 million. This is C plus. It's not great. It's a lot of money for a guy, but he did have a very productive back half of last year. I think he could be a very solid pass rusher for the Commanders. He can develop into that edge rusher one. He has the tools. I do think it can become a solid signing. Boye Mafe to the Bengals, 3 years, $60 million. This gets a C plus. A lot of bad edge rusher deals at the top. $20 million for Boye Mafe is a little bit crazy. Cincinnati, though, they have to pay an edge rusher in some capacity because their edges stink. Shamar Stewart can hopefully develop into something. He played better than maybe people thought, but it's too much money for Boye Mafe. Here's a good deal. Bradley Chubb, 3 years, $43 million. This is an A. Bradley Chubb is a very productive pass rusher, going to the Bills for less than half of the money of Jalen Phillips per year. I think it's a solid deal. It can be a very solid player and a very effective pass rusher for the Bills. Kwity Paye, 3 years, $48 million. This gets a C. I don't understand why people like Kwity Paye. He's not great. That's really the truth. He's just kind of average. $16 million for average. Something I don't like to do, but the Raiders, they do need a pass rusher. It is, I guess, a solid fit for Kwity Paye and the Raiders. Khalil Mack returning to the Chargers, 1 year, $13 million. This gets an A minus. Khalil Mack was a very solid, productive player, even last year with the injuries. But before that, it just seems like he's not going to fall off, even when we expect him to. So Khalil Mack, very solid player. He gets an A minus here. Joseph Osai going to the Jets, 3 years, $35 million. This gets a C. Joseph Osai is The Jets are paying for They lost Jermaine Johnson, replaced it with They're probably going to draft a guy. But Joseph Osai is just And it's a lot of money for It's a C. Draymond Jones to the Patriots, 3 years, $39 million. This gets a B minus. I do think Draymond Jones is a solid player. I would rather done something like re-sign Kayvon Chason, but Draymond Jones, solid piece. He will come in and be effective to Patriots pass rush that needs an effective edge rusher, and he can hopefully be that guy. It's a B minus. Kayvon Chason also going to the Commanders, 1 year, $11 million. This gets a B plus. Another solid edge rusher going to the Commanders. It really opens up what they can draft, but he's a very solid player. I really trust him. I don't think it's a fluke because he did it with the Raiders. He did it with the Patriots. I think this is a solid player going to the Commanders for only $11 million. It's a nice B plus. Then the interior defensive lineman, John Franklin Myers, going to the Titans, 3 years, $63 million. This gets a B plus. The Titans are really building a solid defensive line with him and Jeffrey Simmons and Jermaine Johnson. Hopefully they find another edge rusher, maybe in the draft. They are building something solid on defense. John Franklin Myers is a very solid defensive tackle. You got him. $21 million. I honestly expected it to be more for him to go to a bad team like the Titans. It's B plus. Jonathan Allen going to the Bengals, 2 years, $26 million. This gets a B. Jonathan Allen was honestly a solid player for the Vikings last year. He's getting up there, but he can still produce. The Bengals need an interior defensive lineman that can produce, and he can be that. It's in solid B. Javon Hargrave going to the Packers, 2 years, $23 million. It's a C plus. Javon Hargrave's A. He's kind of been declining. His last good year was 2022. I don't think he's this amazing player, but you're not paying too much for him. I do think he can still be a solid, productive piece, and that's why it's a C plus. Moving on to the linebackers, Devin Lloyd, 3 years, $45 million going to the Panthers. This gets an A minus. Devin Lloyd was one of the best linebackers in football, probably the best linebacker in football last year. I think it's a need for the Panthers. I think he'd fit well with Ejiro Evero. It's not one of those scheme fits that doesn't work at linebacker. I think this is a very solid player going to a very solid team. that gets that leader at linebacker. This can be a very solid defense with him. It's an A-. Tremaine Edmonds going to the Giants, 3 years, $36 million. This gets a B. First off, predicted this completely. The years, the money, the team. But Tremaine Edmonds, very solid player. He's going to a team losing Bobby Okereke. They need a solid linebacker replacement. He can be that. He is a very solid linebacker. He'll fit well with the Giants. Nakobe Dean going to the Raiders, 3 years, $30 million. This gets a B+. Nakobe Dean is a very solid linebacker going to a team that desperately needs a linebacker. For only $10 million a year, I think he's a solid player going to a solid team. He's so instinctive. He's so explosive. He's so good. I'm so sad to see him leave. But the Raiders, they're going to love him. It's a solid signing. It's a B+. Trey Walker also going to the Raiders, 3 years, $40 million. This one gets a C. He's not as good of a linebacker as Nakobe Dean. You're paying more money for him. But he is still a solid piece for a team that needed 2 solid pieces at linebacker. They get both of them. It's a solid C. Trey Greenlaw reuniting with the Niners, 1 year, $7 million. This is an A-. One, we know he fits well with the Niners. I know it's a different DC. I know it's a different anything. But sometimes it's just the city that works. And Trey Greenlaw, still a very solid linebacker, only $7 million. I think it's a solid deal for a very solid player. He's not that old. And yeah, it's a solid A-. Caden Ellis going to the Saints, 3 years, $33 million. This gets a C. I don't think Caden Ellis is worth $11 million. But the Saints are getting a solid linebacker with Demario Davis departing. They do need that. Caden Ellis can fill that role at least enough, but he's not this great linebacker. I don't think he's worth $11 million a year, so he's a C. Mario Davis going to the Jets, 2 years, $22 million. Give it a B. I think he's a solid player. I think he's worth $11 million a year. The Jets, I understand he's old. The Jets, that's not a great fit. But the Jets, they have to try to do something this year. They are signing a bunch of veterans like they want to do something this year. And Mario Davis, he can be a solid leader. He's a good player. I think 11 is understandable. I think it's a B. Leo Chenal going to the Commanders, 3 years, $24 million. This gets a B. I think that Leo Chenal is a solid player. He's a really solid player for the Chiefs these last few years. And so I think he will transition to Washington well. I think he fits well with him and Dan Quinn and the way like Frankie Louvu plays and stuff like that. I think this is a solid pickup. Alex Anzalone going to the Bucs, 2 years, $17 million. This gets a B+. Alex Anzalone's a really solid player going to a team. He's kind of that Levante David, kind of easing into the Levante David replacement, honestly. And Alex Anzalone, very solid player. He's solid. He gets a B+. Then the corner, starting off with Jamel Dean, going to the Steelers, 3 years, $36 million. This is an A. This is the best free agent corner in the class, going for only $12 million a year. I think it's very solid. I think he's a very solid outside corner. You lose James Pierre, but is he really that important? Jamel Dean for only $12 million. It's an A. It's a very solid signing. Jalen Watson going to the Rams, 3 years, $51 million. This is a B+. The Rams really addressed what seems like their biggest need in DB, even with the way a guy like Emmanuel Forbes played last year. I think that the Rams, they're going all in. They're making very solid signings, and Jalen Watson is one of those. He gets a B+. Lante Taylor going to the Titans, 3 years, $60 million. This gets a C-. $20 million for an slot corner. A pretty solid slot corner, but $20 million I think is crazy for him. I get the Titans have to spend money to get guys because they're not a great franchise, but $20 million is absurd for a Lante Taylor, but you are getting a solid player. It's a C-. Cordell Flott, pretty similar. Outside corner this time. This is a D+. 3 years, $45 million, also going to the Titans. I don't understand. I don't understand what's good about Cordell Flott. Just draft a guy or something. Cordell Flott. He's okay. Hey, he's not worth $15 million. Tariq Woolen going to the Eagles, 1 year, $15 million. This gets a B. I'm really excited for what Tariq Woolen could bring to our team. I think he is very solid in coverage, very fast, very electric. Played well in Seattle, especially the back half of the year and in the playoffs. I think this can be a solid deal. I think $15 million is a lot, but I love the fit, and I love Tariq Woolen as a player, so this gets a B. Deshaun Wright going to the Jets, 1 year, just $5.5 million. This gets an A minus. I thought Deshaun Wright was going to get ridiculously overpaid by somebody. Instead, only gets $5.5 million. Goes to a team that needs him a lot. A team that had 0 picks last year, gets the league leader in picks. I think it's a very solid fit. I think it's a very solid contract. It's an A minus. Eric Stokes going to the Raiders, 3 years, $30 million. This gets a C, re-signing with the team. Now, it's only $10 million to a team that has all the cap space in the world, but Eric Stokes is he got better, better than in Green Bay and stuff, but $10 million a year for a guy that, it didn't work last year. The Pass D didn't work in Vegas. I don't think it's a great signing, but it's a C. Josh Jobe going back to Seattle, 3 years, $24 million. This gets an A. Josh Jobe, really solid player for the Seahawks, part of a Super Bowl winning team, re-signs only $8 million. Solid outside corner. I thought he was going to kind of get overpaid by another team. This is a very solid signing. This is an A. Greg Newsome going to the Giants, 1 year, $8 million. This is a B. Greg Newsome's been an okay corner. He was okay in Cleveland. Goes to Jacksonville, was in Jacksonville. Goes to the Giants. Hopefully he can figure something out. But the Giants, they desperately need a corner. And Greg Newsome can be that guy. It's $8 million. It's a B. Then the safeties, Kobe Bryant going to the Bears, 2 years, $24 million. This gets a B+. Kobe Bryant's a very solid safety. Seems like he will be just strictly a safety in Chicago. And I think he fits well with what Chicago likes to do and Dennis Allen on defense. I think he's a very solid pickup, a very solid player. Just $12 million a year. It's a B+. Brian Cook going to the Bengals, 3 years, $40 million. This gets a B-. Again, the Bengals, they need any other help that they can get, and getting a safety will be a positive for them. But Brian Cook isn't amazing. I think he fits well with Al Golden. He isn't amazing. I do think he's worth enough, $13.33 million a year. So it gets a B-. Jaquan Brisker going to the Steelers, 1 year, $5.5 million. This gets an A+. This is a beautiful deal. Just $5.5 million. A prove-it deal for Pittsburgh. He's a very solid player. I think this is an amazing deal for just $5.5 million, reuniting Joey Porter, Pennsylvania, But I think he's a very solid player. I'm very surprised that he signed for only this much. It's an A+. Reed Blankenship going to the Texans, 3 years, $24 million. Hurts my soul, man. Exciting whites. They're supposed to be together. Gets a B+. He's a solid safety going for only $8 million a year. The Texans, they need a safety. They've kind of had some problems with that. I think he fits very well with the defense that they run. Sitting back there, being one of those back safeties, he can be a very solid player for the Texans. It gets a B+. Kevin Byard going to the Patriots, 1 year, $9 million. This is an A-. Getting a real leader on defense and getting a real back safety. They lose Jalen Hawkins, who's a very solid safety for them. Stepped up huge, was one of the parts of why they made the Super Bowl. And Kevin Byard can come in there and play that role even better for just $9 million. Yeah, he's kind of old, but this is an A-. The Cowboys picking up Jalen Thompson on a 3 year, $33 million deal. This gets a C+. Jalen Thompson's been a solid safety. I think he'll fit well with the Cowboys. He's a solid player. He hasn't gotten a pick in 3 years. He's average. He's not amazing. $11 million a year. I just feel like there's more moves you need to make on defense. Gets C+. Alohi Gilman going to the Chiefs, 3 years, $24 million. This gets a B. Solid player. I think he fits well with Spagnuolo and the Chiefs defense. Can kind of fill in for that Brian Cook role. I think he's a solid player. Going to a solid team. Solid amount of money. It's a B. Then last but not least, Nick Scott going to the Commanders, 2 years, $14 million. This gets a B+. Nick Scott is a very solid player. He was very solid with the Colts. He was very consistent with the Colts. Go to the Commanders. He can be a consistent player, be a consistent tackler. Think he fits what they do in DC. So, yeah, I think he's a solid player. I think it's a B+. That's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I will see you on the next one, which will be ranking trades or grading trades. And, yeah, peace.